Throat is cut. I'm lying on the bathroom floor and everything around is red. Warmth spreads across my neck. My eyes tremble, but they no longer see. And I realize this is the end. No later, no maybe. That's it. The last thought. Not about God, not about family. Just, well, that's all, finally. And darkness. But not the kind in dreams. The kind in the abyss. Absolute, thick, alive. And right after it, a click. Something snapped, and suddenly I'm standing, but not on my feet. I don't feel my body, no weight, no pain. I am outside. And I see myself. The body below. Blood, like ink. My mother is screaming. Someone is calling an ambulance. I hear everything, see everything, but as if through glass. And then the sound disappears. The world shuts down. Not slowly, not smoothly, but sharply, like a switch. And I'm no longer in the bathroom. I'm somewhere. It's not a tunnel, not light. It's nothing. But it's terrifying. A space without air, where you don't breathe but you know you're alive. I'm alone. Half of me wants to scream, but I have no mouth, no voice. And then fear appears, not for the body, for the soul, because I realize I've crossed the line. I'm not asleep. This isn't delirium. I am dead. But the scariest thing is not death. The scariest thing is what begins after. I stand or exist in the darkness, and I start to feel I'm not alone. At first just pressure, then as if someone is near, then many. I don't see faces, but I feel these are not people, these are not souls. These are judgment. These are those who know me. They don't speak, but their presence is like a spotlight. And in this darkness, one by one, my actions begin to surface. I don't just see memories, I relive them again, but from the other side. Where I hurt someone, I feel their pain. Where I lied, I hear how trust collapses. Where I betrayed, I stand in the betrayed's place. This isn't a movie. These aren't flashbacks. This is judgment, not external, but internal. Because every decision, every word, every glance I once threw with contempt now comes back to me. And I realize this is hell. Not because it's hot here, but because here is truth. No masks, no jokes, no, I didn't mean to. You meant to, you did it. You are here. I don't know how long it lasted. There is no time there. It doesn't stretch or fly. It simply doesn't exist. But the feeling of eternity is there. You don't know if there will be an end. And from that, everything inside is torn apart. And in the moment when I almost gave up, when I already wanted to become part of this darkness, to dissolve, to disappear, I heard a voice. It wasn't loud. It didn't tear through the space. It was like inside, as if someone whispered directly into my soul. Just 3 words. You are not finished. And everything changed. Not the space, not the place, but me. Those words, they seemed to give me form, as if I became myself again. And in that moment, hope appeared. Not light, not music, but the feeling. Someone sees me. Someone who knows where I am, what I did, who I am, and still says, come back. And I went. I don't know how. I don't know if it was a choice. But the next thing I remember is how suddenly the body returns. Pain, weight, oxygen in the lungs, panic in the eyes, tube in the throat, doctor's hands, voices. And one thought, I'm back, but I'm not the same. Because you can't go there and remain unchanged. I woke up in a hospital room. The light hit my eyes. Everything was sterile, white, too real, as if the world wanted to prove that nothing had happened, that it was just a nightmare, But the body doesn't believe, the heart doesn't believe, the soul even less so. I remembered everything, every second there, every shadow, every feeling that tore me apart from the inside. It was real, more real than this ceiling, more real than the machines around me. I stayed silent. The doctors asked, "Do you remember what happened?" I nodded, but didn't speak. How do you explain to them that the pain after death is deeper than anything physical? That what I saw is impossible to forget? The dreams came first, or not dreams, flashes. I see a face, a shadow, hear a voice, and wake up in a cold sweat. My mother sat by the bed, praying. She thought I had just slipped into a coma, that everything would return to normal, but I couldn't be the same, because the old me is dead. I didn't know where to start, how to say that I had seen everything, that the soul is not a metaphor, not a religion, but a fact. How to say that hell is not a threat, it's a warning, and that it's closer than we think. I shut down. I didn't eat. I didn't want to speak. I just listened, because inside, the same voice still echoed, quiet, but clear. You are not finished. And the question, so what will you do with that now? They discharged me. I left the hospital like a zombie, people walking around, smiling, talking about nothing. And I look and see how many of them are already dead inside. They haven't been where I was, but their souls are on the edge, and the scariest part, they don't even notice. In the evenings I would go out into the yard, just sit, and be silent. Sometimes I would pray, wordlessly, just sit and think. If you gave me a second chance was what for? And at some point, understanding came. I need to speak, not for fame, not for likes, but because if I stay silent, I will betray the one who brought me back. The first attempt was terrifying. I just wrote a long message to a friend, told him everything, he read it. And you know what? He didn't laugh. He didn't delete it. He wrote, "Brother, I went through something like that too, but I was afraid to admit it." That was the first, then the second, the third. People started writing to me, talking. Someone had seen light. Someone had heard a voice. Someone like me had been there, but kept silent. I realized there are many of us. We're just afraid to speak because we're afraid they'll think we're crazy, or maybe even worse, we're afraid they'll hear us, and then we'll have to act. I started speaking aloud, in churches, at street gatherings, in small groups. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a saint. I'm not an angel. I'm just a guy who was in hell and came back. I just tell my story. I speak as it is. No gloss, no embellishment. I say that death is not the end. It's a continuation. That hell is not where it's hot. It's the place where you see yourself without a filter. And if you think this doesn't concern you, you're wrong. We will all be there one day, or in the light. It all depends on who you've become. I speak because maybe among those listening is someone who's on the edge, who thinks everything is lost, who is ready to give up. I'm here to say, no, you are not finished. If you're breathing, you can still return. Not physically, but with your soul. Return to yourself. Return to the one who gave you life, not as a slave, but as a son or a daughter. I don't give recipes. I don't have a formula. I only have a story, but if it resonates, it means you're already hearing it. You don't just come back from the other side and become enlightened. That's a fairy tale. In reality, you come back, and everything becomes harder. Because now you know and you can't brush it off. You've seen what happens when a soul is lost. You've been there. And now every choice is a challenge. Do you want to go back there again? I became different, not because I wanted to, but because there was no other way. Everything that used to be normal now feels like mold. Small talk makes you want to leave. Empty parties aren't funny. Money, ambition, status, meaningless. You see how the world rushes around, searches, yells, throws itself into extremes, and yet drowns in silence without even noticing. I started noticing people, deeper. One look, and I already know they're on the edge. A girl on the subway with eyes that scream, shout but stay silent. A man in a cafe drinking alone because home is empty. A teenager glued to their phone because reality stings more than the screen. And you feel all of this because you've been there, because you came back to see it. Then comes temptation. Quiet, sneaky. Go back. Forget. Pretend nothing happened. Become normal. Live like everyone else. Drink coffee, post pictures, discuss shows. And everything will be okay. Only you know it won't. Because the soul is already awake. Sometimes I envied those who saw nothing. It's easier for them. They can live in illusion. I cannot. Even if I try, hell resurfaces, not as fear, but as a reminder of who I am, and that I was given a chance. One, not infinite. And that's when I realized I need to go further, not just to share, but to find others like me, and speak to them, not to teach, but just to be near. So they know. They're not crazy. They're awakened. I started traveling to cities, simple halls, rooms, basements, people with different faces, different stories, but the same look. Deep, tired, the kind that's seen something, or is about to. I didn't give lectures. I just stepped forward and said, I died. I slit my throat. I ended up in hell, and I came back. Not because I deserved it, but because I was called back. And I'm telling this now because if I stay silent, I'll return there. Sometimes people in the room started crying, not hysterically, just silent tears. Because someone had finally said out loud what they'd been feeling the whole time, but were afraid to admit, I got lost too. I feel the soul hurting too. I'm tired too. And I said, this is not the end. This is the beginning. You're on the edge because it's time to wake up. If you hear this, it means you're already being called. If you're breathing, you are not finished. Sometimes I wanted to quit everything. Go to the mountains. Be silent. Live without people. Because when you carry other people's pain every day, you get tired. But every time I wanted to turn back, someone would write, Steve, your story stopped me. I was already standing there with the pills. But I remembered you, and I chose to live. And I realized, and for that alone it was worth going through everything. For just one person like that, it was worth dying. But I know there's not just one. There are thousands. They're just hiding, afraid, silent. But inside they're already hearing it. And if you are one of them, I'm telling you, you're not crazy. You've woken up. And yes, it's scary, but it's also beautiful, because a person who is awakened is fire. You can't blow them out. You can only either ignite them or fear them. Living after death is not a gift. It's a responsibility, because you can no longer say, I didn't know. You saw. You felt. You went through what others are saved from by the prayers and tears of their mothers, and you crawled out of the darkness to stand here and look into the eyes of those who are still asleep. And now you are their mirror, even if you don't want to be, even if you're afraid. You already carry within you knowledge that doesn't let you sleep. You walk down the street and see how the world lives in a blackout, as if everyone walks like shadows, laughing, shopping, making plans, arguing in traffic, throwing away bread, cheating, lying, staying silent, hating. And no one feels that at any moment it could all end, not dramatically, not loudly, just darkness. And what comes after won't be a surprise, because the soul always knew where it was going, it just pretended not to hear. I tried to forget, really. I wanted to be ordinary, to work, to build, to live like everyone else. But they didn't let me. Because every time I kept quiet, I dreamed of them. The ones who were there with me. The ones whose eyes I can't forget, without faces, but with a pain that burns through. They didn't curse. They just stared. And with that look, they said, "Why didn't you tell them?" I realized silence is betrayal. Not just of God, but of those who can still wake up. I could no longer stay quiet, so I started to speak. I went to YouTube, not for likes. I gave interviews, not for fame. I just told the story, honestly. No bravado, no fakeness. Sometimes with a trembling voice, sometimes with tears, but truthfully. And I began to notice that words spoken from fire ignite others. People wrote, "I felt it. I can't explain it, but I know you're telling the truth." Someone opened their heart. Someone returned to their family. Someone quit drugs. Someone simply wrote, "Now I understand why I'm alive." And I realized that my hell wasn't for nothing. It became a tool, a weapon in the hands of the one who saved me. Not because I'm special, but because he can do anything, even build a bridge from hell. But this path is not easy. Old friends turned away. Some said I'd gone mad. Some laughed. Some deleted my contact. And yes, it hurts. Because you are alone. Because no one taught you how to live with such truth. Because sometimes even you don't know if you'll make it. But then comes a letter from a guy in Brazil who wanted to jump off a bridge but heard my story and stopped. A voice message from a woman in Norway who was afraid of death for 20 years and now prays every day. A guy from California who was in a coma and saw the same thing. And you realize, I'm not alone. We are not alone. We just started remembering earlier than others. And that means we must go first, not to lead, but to shine. I'm not a saint. I still make mistakes. Sometimes I get angry. Sometimes I'm afraid. Sometimes I'm tired. But I can't stop. Because this isn't my path. It's a mission, a duty, an honor. Every day when I wake up, I remember where I was pulled from. I feel how hard it is to speak about this again and again. But I know, if even one person wakes up, I came back for a reason. And now you, reading this, or listening, you're thinking, maybe I'm not a coincidence. Listen, if there's a tremble inside you, if you feel that these words are not just text, if your heart beats just a bit faster than usual, it means you're already connected. It means you're already being called. It means you're already on the edge of awakening. And there's only one question left. Will you wake up or fall asleep again? Do you still think you're a coincidence, that you just clicked on this video or opened this text for fun? No, brother or sister, no. This is a calling, not from me, from him. I'm just a voice, a witness, a reminder. You're not listening to me, you're listening to yourself. Because everything I'm saying, you already knew. You just forgot. Or didn't want to remember. How many times have you woken up in the middle of the night for no reason? How many times have you stared at the ceiling and felt something's not right? How many times have you smiled but felt empty inside? That is the signal. Not from your nerves, from your soul. It was whispering. Hey, are you still there? Have you not lost yourself? Death is not the end. It's a transition. But here's the question. To where? I was there. I know. This isn't a tale. Not religion. It's an experience that burned away everything false in me. Left only the essence. I lived as if I'd live forever. Thought I'd do everything in time. Solve it all later. And then I picked up a knife. And if not for the voice, if not for "You are not finished," I would have stayed there. In the silence that screams. In the darkness that remembers. In the eternity where nothing can be undone. But I came back to tell you you still have a chance. As long as you're breathing, you're in the game. As long as your heart beats, you can turn around. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it's easier to forget. Easier to live like everyone else. Easier to scroll past to say, okay, that was cool, but not for me. But if you do that, you'll fall asleep again. And one day, when it's already too late, you'll remember. But will there still be a way back then? I'm not asking you to believe in God. This isn't a pitch, this isn't a church, this isn't marketing. I'm asking you, remember. Who are you? Where did you come from? Why are you here? You are not just a body, not just a name. You are a soul. And you've known it from the very beginning. You felt it in childhood. You knew you were different. You didn't fit in. You couldn't just be like everyone else because you were called. And now you've heard it. Now you know. And you have no more excuses. Now the choice is yours. You can stay, pretend. Or you can say, I'm waking up, I hear, I accept. And then everything will begin to change. Not instantly, not like a snap. But surely the heart will come alive, the eyes will start to see. You'll start recognizing others like you. You'll start feeling you're not alone. I went through death so you could hear this. If you're reading this, it means you're ready. You're not weak, you're not broken, you just forgot. And now you're remembering, so remember all the way. Not just a little, not sort of, but fully. Stop, close your eyes, say out loud, I am alive. I am not a coincidence. I am not finished, I am a soul, and I am coming back. If this resonates, don't stay silent. Share. Write in the comments what you feel. Hit the like, not for the number, but so that others like you can find this, and subscribe if you want to go further. Because we are going not into religion, but into reality, a reality where you don't forget. But finally, remember who you are. And that, brother, sister, that is the beginning of real life.